the same date, just a year apart, the 12th of December, detectives believe there may be more victims as yet unidentified. Grimson joined the Royal Navy in 1978, and by the time of his conviction for murder, he was the rank of Petty Officer. He served aboard HMS Illustrious and was a trainer in firefighting techniques whilst based at HMNE Portsmouth. Whilst being questioned by police, Grimson admitted that he secured the ranks of trainees and cadets so he could dominate and kill the best-looking ones. After assessment by a psychologist, opinion was divided on Grimson's mental health. Whilst it was generally believed that Grimson was responsible for his actions, one psychologist labelled Grimson as being the worst psychopath that he had come across in 250 murders. At the trial, Mr. Justice Criswell told Grimson, "You are a serial killer in nature, if not in number. You are a highly dangerous serial killer who killed 2 young men in horrifying circumstances." He sentenced him to a minimum term of 22 years at his trial. His first victim was 16-year-old Nicholas Wright, who was in the Royal Navy. Grimson had met Wright on a firefighting course run by the Royal Navy in November 1997. Grimson offered to give Wright a lift home to Leicester on the weekends, but Wright and his family were suspicious of his motives. While Wright was on shore leave from HMS Edinburgh in December 1997, he was seen out drinking with Grimson. They were witnessed leaving a Portsmouth nightclub together, and according to Grimson, they went back to his flat where Grimson tried kissing Wright. Wright spurned his advances and Grimson attacked Wright firstly by punching him, then with a baseball bat, landing several blows, and then cutting his throat with a carving knife and dumping his body in the bath of Grimson's flat. Wright's body was later dumped beside the A272 road near Cheriton in Hampshire. Grimson was questioned by military police in 1997, but lied to keep himself out of the investigation. Grimson detailed the killing out to officers whilst being interviewed in December 1999. He admitted to getting a thrill from killing Wright. He said the thrill came from the power he had over the younger man, and that the killing had no sexual element to it. However, he did admit that the feeling was better than an orgasm. His second victim was 20-year-old Sion Jenkins, who was killed a year later in December 1998. Jenkins was originally from Newbury and had been in the Royal Navy for a brief spell. At the time of his murder, he was working as a barman in the Hogshead pub in Portsmouth and had met up with Grimson in a nightclub called Joanna's in the town. Jenkins was drunk, and both he and Grimson went back to Grimson's flat where Jenkins was forced to have sex after Grimson punched and threatened him. In the morning, Jenkins expressed his desire to leave, and Grimson wished to recapture the same feeling of elation that he had when he murdered Wright the previous year. Jenkins was bound to the bath and severely beaten with a baseball bat, resulting in his death. His body was dumped next to the A32 road at West Tisted. Police investigated the disappearance of naval rating Simon Parks from HMS Illustrious while she was docked in Gibraltar in 1986. Grimson and Parks both served on HMS Illustrious at that time, and witnesses have placed the two together on the night that Parks disappeared. UK police have flown over to Gibraltar and have used sniffer dogs and have searched the sewers in attempts to discover Parks' body. Police speculate that there are other unknown victims and believe that as Grimson killed people on the 12th of December each year, there could be between 11 and 20 unidentified victims at Grimson's hands. Police believe more of his secrets might be able to come to light after they finished an 11-day dig in Gibraltar. Officers were hoping to find the remains of missing Royal Navy seaman Simon Parks, removing 80 tons of earth in their search. The 18-year-old disappeared on December 12, 1986, and is now presumed to have been murdered. The dig at the Rocks Trafalgar Cemetery in Gibraltar is the third time police have tried to find Simon's body. DNA analysis is still being carried out, but linking Grimson to this case would be a major breakthrough for officers who have spent years looking into other incidents that the serial killer could be involved with. Operation Thornhill has examined the disappearance of other young men at ports around the world where Grimson went ashore while serving on HMS Illustrious and the Type 42 destroyer HMS Edinburgh. There are also